The Manukau Harbour is the second largest natural harbour in New Zealand. Located on the west coast of the North Island, the Manukau has a touch of wilderness. Pohutakawa and native bush grow near the water's edge, attracting a large number of birds and other wildlife. The harbour is a popular spot for fishing and bushwalks. The suburbs that back onto the Manukau have walking tracks that take you right down to the water. The Manukau Harbour has a container port facility located at Onehunga. While this port is close to the industrial parts of South Auckland, the access to the harbour is very dangerous. This access is so dangerous that in 1863 it was the site of New Zealand's worst maritime disaster. The HMS Orpheus was built in the Chatham Dockyard in Kent, England in 1861. Owned by the Royal Navy, she was a fully rigged ship with 3 masts and 2-cylinder steam engines. She was 69 metres long and carried a complement of 270 officers and men. On the 31st of January 1863, the Orpheus left Sydney with a full crew of men to visit New Zealand. The men on board were an average age of 22, and many of them couldn't swim. There was pressure on Commodore Burnett to make the New Zealand visit as short as possible, so he decided to sail straight for the Manukau. The Manukau Harbour is one of the most deceiving stretches of water in New Zealand. The sands of the bar shift constantly and can only be identified by the waves breaking out at sea. The Orpheus approached the Manukau Bar on the 7th of February 1863. She was a well-equipped ship, one of the best to sail the shores. On board there was a New Zealand pilot chart and a set of sailing instructions.
This is an example of the type of charts that would have been used in 1863 when they were navigating approaching the Manukau Harbour. The original charts were showing the sandbars in a different location. This chart was amended after the shipwreck of the Orpheus, and here in this insert you can see the amendments.
Meanwhile, Edward Wynne, the 21-year-old son of the harbour master and pilot, was on duty at the signal station. He noticed the Orpheus heading in the wrong direction, so he quickly hoisted the signal, "Keep more offshore." By the time the signal was seen, it was too late. The Orpheus struck the sandbank and came to a jolting stop. The force of the surf raging against the sides of the ship caused her to swing around and take on water. She was a doomed vessel, hopelessly stuck with no chance of survival. The huge swells on deck swept men overboard to their death. Lifebuoys were thrown out in an attempt to rescue them, but they were quickly broken up by the violent waves.
I was on the quarterdeck with some of the other officers, and we saw the breakers ahead. We knew that we were headed for destruction. When the mast went, the crew gave 3 cheers, as if taking the farewell of life.
Meanwhile, the coastal ship the Wanga Wanga was leaving the harbour to continue on its route to Wellington. When it became apparent that the Orpheus was in trouble, the Wanga Wanga approached the ship and attempted to pick up survivors. By the time the rescuers reached the Orpheus, 3/4 of the crew had already drowned. In the Manukau Harbour towards Onehunga lies Pukitutu Island. On the island there grew a pureri tree that was considered sacred to the Māori people. The day before the Orpheus sunk, a Pākehā settler cut the tree down and converted it to fencing posts. Māori legend says that the Orpheus Disaster was caused because of the violation of tapu. The rescue attempts to save the drowning men continued into the night by the light of the moon. When dawn came, only the stumps of the mast and pieces of the deck remained visible. 189 men lost their lives. Only 1/3 of these bodies were found and buried. This plaque marks the grave of 3 unknown sailors of the Queen who lost their lives when HMS Orpheus foundered at the Manukau entrance on February 7, 1863. The Orpheus Disaster cast wreckage and bodies along the strip of the coastline. Most of these artefacts are on display to the public today at the Huia Settlers Museum.
The mast, the remains of the masts, which we have here at the museum, were recovered in 1991 in the Kaipara harbour and brought to the museum in 92. It was built with Baltic pine. This mast had been sighted many times in 121 years since it shipwrecked before it was brought here to the museum.
There is a sad irony about the Orpheus shipwreck. The men journeyed 20,000 miles from England, only to meet disaster less than 2 miles from New Zealand. The museum commemorates the sinking of the Orpheus, New Zealand's most tragic maritime disaster.